Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Dropped Frames. It's another week, another show, and this week we have a guest. MathiL, did you know that you're our second guest of 2019? It's a big honor. We've gone about 8 weeks without a guest, so don't suck, man.
I didn't know that, but permission to suck is
Okay.
that's what everyone wants.
Yeah, just be careful. They're expecting a lot. That's all I'm saying.
We're all counting on you, bud.
We're all counting on you, man. Just don't. It's gonna be rough. You're determining a lot of things today. All right, let's just say that.
The future of all guests rides in my hands.
One could say that. We're gonna have a developer manifesto next week on guest. We'll have some patch notes out, depending on what happens here. So we'll let you know.
Okay.
We'll let you know. Co, what episode are we on?
8451.
8451. Thank you very much, Co. Zeke, how are your eyes
That was
doing?
a big jump from last week.
Was it? I never know anymore. He just says numbers, and I think that they're in line, and we move on. I mean, that's kind of how it's always been, but yeah. Zeke, you're not wearing the shades today. Are your eyes good? Are you?
I couldn't find them.
Normalized?
I couldn't find my good shades. I don't know where I put them. Oh, they're over here. Oh, I know where Never mind. Oh,
Well,
I got them.
we got an hour and a half of PoE, so if you want to put them on and go to sleep, I mean, I understand.
Well, I may or may not be
Really cool.
rolling through chess pieces to try and get my Tide Hunter 2
Oh,
and conquer everybody else in the game.
I see.
So.
I see. You're deep into the auto chess world, as it happens. It just happens. We'll be talking auto chess in the second half, but for the first half, we're just going to talk to MathiL here. I think we should also explain that you're not planning to kill anyone. You just have a meme board behind you. Let's get that out of the way. What's going on with the conspiracy board behind you?
Right, not planning to kill anyone. Okay, so let's just
Let's just go through it. Let's take us through it here. Let's.
Oh god, I mean, there's an actual command in my chat to go over this because I did a proper introduction to this at the start of the Path of Exile League, which is supposed to be something to do with detectiving and discovering a mastermind.
Mhm.
So I decided to make something like this, dress up as a detective, and if you do exclamation betrayal, you can see my entire little cosplay thing. But basically, yeah, I just made a little board to mimic the whole detective scenario, and we've got whoever that is up top there, the leader. We've got the Sweaty Frog family going in for they're supposed to be some sort of informants and stuff. Got Diablo 3 and a mobile phone somehow linked, and the syncing of certain franchises, and they've been crossed out. Got our friend the Salt Baron, Kriparian.
I know him quite
well. He's one that was eliminated from this entire sort of Path of Exile conspiracy at one point, as we all know. And yeah, there's just a couple of others. The Succubus attached to Kriparian, the Katarian, also eliminated at one point mysteriously. And yeah, that's basically I just went over that in a bit of a meme, and I try to dress up for the start of a league somehow, every way, because people expect that, and it's kind of fun to do.
Can you give us any hints for the synthesis day one?
I can't, because
Okay.
it's better as more of a reveal at the time.
Okay.
It's not easy to think of this one. Usually a league shows up and instantly, there's a theme, and I'm just like, oh, that'd be perfect. This one took I don't know, a week or something to just brainstorm, talk over with a couple friends, that sort of thing. And yeah, I'm going to go in pretty deep on this one.
Okay. All right. I hope to see some kindergarten science experiments, combining some different stuff at the start. Be pretty good.
Well, can't give anything away.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I wasn't sure.
Let's not talk
I wasn't sure when I looked at it if it was a conspiracy theory, but I guess the red yarn should have given it away that it was conspiracy theory and not a mafioso tree. At the top you got the Don, and then you got the underbosses, then you got the button men, and so on and so forth. I thought that might be something, what it is, but
it's still something like that. But there's supposed to be some sort of links between those people down below and all that. I mean, it was kind of just supposed to be something slapped together, so I'm hoping it wasn't taken too seriously.
Can't judge it too hard.
Okay.
Yeah. It stayed up all league. Though. I like the commitment. It was good.
Yeah.
I absolutely love it, man. It's It's very funny. I dig it.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, no, it took a bit of effort. I'm glad it paid off.
Yeah, yeah. Well, whenever we have guests on for the first time, we like to kind of talk about their path, I guess, here on Twitch. So we'll start there with you. Was Path of Exile what you started with on Twitch? Has it always been the PoE life here, or where did it all begin for young MathiL?
Yeah, yeah. It started with Path of Exile, and it's probably going to end with Path of Exile as long as it keeps on going. Like I'm happy to play the game, and happy to keep on going as long as it gets updated and feels good, and it doesn't look like it's going anywhere. But yeah, like I started just by playing Path of Exile and made a few videos for certain builds and guides, and people started subscribing to my YouTube channel, which seemed weird. I was like, what? I'm just making a few little like instructional things for the website. And then I started to gain a bit of a following, and like lots of people streamed at this point already, and I knew it was a viable option, but the internet just wasn't good enough in Australia to do anything with that. So it wasn't really ever an option until some internet started to get rolled out throughout the city in certain suburbs. Managed to locate one of the places where I could move to and just try it out. Went there, started playing Path of Exile right from the get-go. Had a decent amount of viewers to begin with. My first couple streams had maybe 50 to 100 viewers already. And for Path of Exile back then, that's already like the top. So
Yeah, what
when I first
year are we
started,
talking about here? Like to put in perspective.
4 years, 3 months, something like that.
Okay.
4 years, 5 months, maybe. So when I started, Crip left Path of Exile maybe like a year ago or something like that. And the biggest streamer at the time would have been maybe Ziggy D with like 800 to 1,000 viewers. Besides that, most people couldn't hold more than like 100 viewers. So I had 50 to 100 or so, and I was already near the top of the section. And then it just snowballed from there. I kept making builds, kept making kind of interesting content, and that just drew in more people, and it kept me somewhere near the top of the PoE stream section, and it just kept on working from then on out. And basically I only stream Path of Exile, but I do dabble in a little bit of games here or there. It's not really too worthwhile streaming those, but I try every now and again, every few months, maybe a couple hours for some game if I'm playing it.
Yeah, every once in a while I'll see Apex Legends on your desktop in the middle of a stream. So I know other games are installed on your PC. I just don't know if you play them.
Yeah, it used to be Counter-Strike, then it was PUBG, then it was Apex. I just play like one of those games on the side every now and again.
Yeah, you mentioned.
Well, usually
no,
when there's a I don't know if single game streamer or core game streamer would be like whatever the term is. Or when you usually like 99% of the time you play one particular game. Usually there's a bit of skill and something else that draws people in. I wanted to. I was gonna say something, but I think do you count like your shoulders like as part of like your draw? Like
MathiL's the only streamer that can pull off a tank top. I think if I did it, people would just be like, "Why is this fat fuck wearing a goddamn? Put on a shirt, you idiot! What are you doing?"
I was gonna say the shoulders are good, but I would probably say the Fabio style handsomeness is probably a little bit more.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough to really pinpoint it. A lot of people can attribute it to many different things. Could be the hair, could be the shoulders, could be just various tank tops or slutty outfits. But I've had haircuts, I've had short hair, and it has still retained.
Did you see a
some amount
viewership
of
drop
viewers.
when you cut your hair?
I'd say there were more angry viewers, but I'm not sure if it was there was less of them.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe just a lot of people came in like, "You cut your hair? How dare you? Who are you?" But otherwise, I think I still maintained a similar amount of viewership. It is honestly a scary thing to change my hair at this stage of the game, because a lot of my emotes are based off of my hair, and just the entire theme people really seem to get into. But it's not going to stop me. If I'm going for a haircut, it's going to happen.
Uh-oh. Are you announcing anything about the hair? What's the illusion here? What do we?
Not currently.
Okay.
Not currently. I have said for the past couple of weeks that my hair has been really annoying me, and I'm looking at maybe doing a haircut if I stop being lazy. Because once you start getting like long hair at this stage, it's such work to keep up. Not like I don't have to do much. It's just you have to dry off more hair than usual. You have to style it a little bit. There's hair everywhere. It's fallen out, as opposed to just having a nice little crew cut. It's so much easier.
I understand.
Oh yeah, having a thick, full head of hair that's not receding is it's such annoying, so annoying, like terrible thing that you have to deal with every day.
You can relate, right?
Yeah.
Totally relate.
The Twitch stock people they're selling because the hair's been talked about cut. So I'm just saying your stock it's dropping. All right, you're gonna have to do something.
Hey, who knows? Maybe I'll look better with shorter hair. Maybe you should buy the stocks. Could be a winning move.
That's some insider information there. We might get taken down by the.
That might have been illegal.
Yeah.
Right there. Yeah.
Right.
By the TSCC. Yeah. Twitch stocks trade commission. Yeah. It's a thing. Go look it up. If you don't know what we're talking about, by the way, twitchstocks.com. Go play. It's a lot of fun. Just to even watch the numbers go up and down as someone goes offline and stuff like that. It's fucking ridiculous. I don't know who owns that site or who created it or how it all started, but it's good stuff.
Can't be healthy for the streamers though, right? Like checking
yeah.
up your own stocks and seeing that, oh no, I did bad today. And then you just get into this mental spiral of what should I do to raise my stocks?
Yeah. I've already decided to dedicate an entire monitor to it during the stream. So if I see it dropping, I'll just I'll
Rip your shirt off and start running around.
I'll go the live stream fails route and mild racism, maybe a little nip slip. You got to get that stock jumping up every once in a while. It's a
good idea.
It's a live stream fails way. Yeah.
Yell about another streamer. That's a very popular one.
Yeah, that's always to start
get
a fake
dartboard
feud
with other streamers. Just throw it and then just start insulting that guy.
Yeah, it's good stuff. It's good stuff.
This is the first time I've looked at it. I've never looked at it before. I like that the 3-letter abbreviation is ZKL. I like that.
Mine's ITM. I'm not sure how I feel about that.
ITM?
They didn't even get JP in the fucking why?
Yeah, the most important part.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sure. Could have been IJP.
Yeah, whoever made that is a fool. I'm not calling you out, all right? But you're
Sell.
You're kind of fucking up here. You mentioned Kriparian, and I think a lot of Path of Exile streamers kind of. I'll ask you what is Kriparian to like the PoE world? Is he the grandfather of it all when it comes to streaming land of PoE?
I mean, yeah, I think so. I'd say most PoE streamers or anyone that's been playing like longer than 4 years can quite likely attribute their existence in the game to him because it was a pretty small underground game at the time, barely, even in betas or barely out there on the internet. And Diablo 3 was kind of stale at the time. And he decided to start streaming, playing the game. And a lot of us watched it and then eventually jumped ship and started trying it as well. And it wouldn't have really had the exposure back then that it otherwise could have had without him. And I know that I started playing because of him. I know a lot of other people have said they started playing because of him. And I mean, it's probably likely that he's a huge reason that it became sort of what it is today, as far as I know anyway.
Yeah. I think both him and Total Biscuit, as Chad's pointing out right now, are probably two of the biggest reasons that, besides, of course, the development of the game and everything, but two of the biggest content creators at the early onset of PoE. Do you remember the patch that you started playing on? Were you there in early beta or?
Yeah, I think I was near the end of closed beta, so I bought the little bronze supporter pack where you got a Kiwi, and then I've played every league since then. I can't remember exactly when in closed beta. Yeah, I've done every league from since it released.
Do you have?
Can we point out that you described it as, you said it's early onset, like it's diabetes or something? The early onset of PoE. Oh man, you got stage 4 PoE. I'm very, very sorry about this.
It hit me early, and there was no escape, sadly.
Yeah, he was,
I mean, for me, it worked out. So, but other people maybe not so lucky.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, I think you kind of started off, like you said, on YouTube, and so people were like, was there Was there a conscious decision when it came over to being to Twitch in terms of what you were going to like focus your stream on, or was it literally just, hey, let's just play the game and see what happens? Like, how did that process begin, or what was the thought process?
I mean, to begin with, yeah, like I just made a few builds, and that's kind of how I played Path of Exile. I just worked on a build and saw if I could make it something, and a couple of times it did turn out pretty well and became rather popular. And transitioning to Twitch, I just thought, yeah, I'll just show off the gameplay that I'm currently doing with those pretty funky builds. And that started to get people a bit interested. And for the most part, like what I want to do is just make another character and then explore another build and start seeing another aspect of the game, another skill, another mechanic, and then move on, because I'm always kind of a altaholic, you know, someone that wants to re-roll lots of times and experience lots of different things. And it's just kind of fit my playstyle to the point where I have a fairly strict routine now where I get to a certain level, re-roll, and each character lasts like 5 days or so.
What? Put that in perspective. How many alts or characters, not necessarily alts, did you have in Betrayal? If you know the number.
I do at this point, yes. Betrayal, I had 19 characters above level 92, I believe.
So that's about new character every 5 or 6 days, something like that.
Or yeah, 90 days, yeah, 4 or 5 days, something like that. I spend about anywhere from 6 to 8 hours streaming every day. So each character has something like 24 to 30 hours playtime on him. If it's a particularly engaging character, it'll go a little bit longer. If it's one that I'm not too keen on, it'll end at about 24 hours playtime.
Have you ever had a character that just is fucking awful and you just stopped like halfway
I mean,
through,
yeah,
or level 50,
happens.
60?
It happens.
Yeah.
Not level 50, 60.
try to
That's
push it?
way too thin. By the time you get to like maps or so, and you're kind of like halfway through the map progress, maybe at that point you're just like, this isn't worth it. And at this stage, I've done enough of them, and Path of Building exists, so it just makes things so much easier to plan your own characters out and know if they're gonna suck or not. But the last one was probably like a year ago, something like that, where I just started a concept, got to about level 80, and I just thought, look, guys, this sucks. It's really not worth it. And I could make it work. Maybe it would take a lot of currency, take a lot of effort. No one's going to follow this, and let's just move on.
What do you? I think most people play Path of Exile by doing the following: they open up Path of Exile, then they open up YouTube and type in a skill name that they potentially liked, and then try to find a build that has already been created and uses that skill. Most of the time, it's one of your videos. What do you think? Is it just game knowledge? Is it just time in game that allows you to sit there and look at a skill and mentally be able to say, all right, well, we could go with that item and maybe throw some of that in there and focus it with some other synergy of this skill? Like, is that all just game time and game knowledge that creates that type of stuff?
I think more or less, like to some extent, you have to be that type of a gamer or that type of a person, one that likes to figure out little problems, and it's kind of like, I don't know how to really put it, like a brain teaser, where you want to figure out the most optimum path, the most optimal gear, passives, all of that, and just smash them together in the best possible way. But for the most part, yeah, it just ends up being up to the amount of time it takes to learn all of this stuff, the trial and error that it goes through, seeing what succeeds. Because what it really started out for me being is I'd had a few bad builds, or just a few builds that weren't that great, and I feel like I learnt from them, where some things that worked well, some things that didn't work well, like the defensive mechanic of evasion was really good with, at least back then when I first did it, there was some really good stacking of elemental damage, some really good this, that. That didn't work, this didn't work, and then I could go on to my next character and utilize the things that was good, the things that were bad, put them together. And eventually you just get a feel for what works, what doesn't work. And then it's just up to trying out skills and seeing if they're viable, good, or worth building around. So it's just a lot of time invested to want, at some point, learn how, things work and whether they're worth doing.
Do you have a particular, like, build or style that you keep going back to because you're just like, I really love this. I'm gonna do another one of these, or
Yeah,
something like that.
it might just for the most part be one skill called Spectral Throw, as everyone knows, and we'll probably be spamming at this point because it's just such a satisfying skill. It's the one where you just throw out your weapon and then it rotates like a boomerang a bit and then comes back to you. And that paired with the movement skill Whirling Blades, which lets you dash really quickly once or twice, it just feels like so much synergy there that it's got the best play style. I absolutely love it for mapping. So yeah, just various like spectral throws, and I try to bring a different sort of way of building to each one I do at this point. Because if I play the same one, it's a little bit boring, or the same type of scaling, it's a bit boring. So yeah, there's flat elemental scaling, physical, poison, cast on crits, and all kinds of stuff that you can try and do differently. But yeah, Spectral Throw always has a special place in my heart.
I think streamers, one thing that we talk about whenever we have guests, have like a breakout moment or a breakout game or something like that. But being PoE is your game, do you have like a breakout build that you would say kind of put you on the map? Whether it was the first one that kind of blew up on YouTube or one that everyone's started to take from you and use as a guide, anything like that that you can remember?
Well, yeah, that would have been my first real Spectral Throw build, which is Elemental Buzzsaw. And then also leading into Fakener, which is a cast on crit Cyclone Discharge. So to begin with, I played Elemental Buzzsaw. That was my first real successful build, well before I even started streaming. And I thought it was a really nice build. And then when they announced the Ambush League, I think it was, I wanted to take what I thought was going to be the best possible build to clear all the content and give myself the best possible chance to win the race to the new boss at Ziri. And I took my build Elemental Buzzsaw and ended up winning the race to Ziri as the first person to kill her on Ambush League using that build, and that really skyrocketed the popularity of the build. And then from there, my next big build would have been Fakener, which was cast on crit Cyclone Discharge. And that one was just one that felt like it changed the whole game for me. Like it was so much stronger than anything I'd done before that. And I think a lot of people felt the same way too. So it just gave me sort of a name for myself as a build maker all of a sudden. Someone that can have stable builds and someone can have pretty crazy builds. And then, yeah, people started going to the YouTube and then the Twitch from there.
Now, I've always wondered this for people who are at or near the top of their game, so to speak. Do you just go off of your own instinct and your own like knowledge of the game and that kind of stuff, or are you looking up stuff? Like, are you on the forums going like, "Oh, I never thought about that synergy" and stuff like that? I'm just curious. Yeah.
Like I check the PoE Reddit and I do see certain builds float past and interactions. I try not to look at them too much. If it's really quick or if it's just something showcased fairly briefly, yeah, I'll have a look at it. But for the most part, I try and avoid looking at anyone else's content, anyone else's builds, videos, all of that sort of stuff, because I want to make my own stuff. You do get influenced by watching other people's things. And I have had plenty of issues in the past of people saying that, you stole this or you didn't make that. And I want to avoid that as much as possible because I know for a fact that I did make everything I've made rather than taking it from anyone. And I want to, avoid any of that misconception or confusion. So I try and just do my own thing because it works. I can come up with my own stuff at this point. And I just don't really want to get any outside influence. So I have my entire chat to talk to, and they will sometimes give me suggestions or interactions, and that's enough to go off of to make a few other ideas anyway.
So you made it kind of reminds me of like the stand-up comedian world where people like you don't want to steal anybody else's jokes. Like does it feel like that? Is it like I heard that you were doing this lightning axe build, I did that, right? I did that. Like I'm wondering, like, is there like any like sort of like banter or anything like that within the world of content creators?
I mean, to begin with, yeah, there was like just everything was credited to Moors, a streamer Moors, because he made some sort of build, I think, and then someone else made the build and it became kind of popular. And then he's like, no, I made that build. So then everyone just started saying he did it first. And just for every single build. And yeah, there's still some of that going around. But for the most part, I mean, I don't really care if someone else makes a build at this point that looks similar to mine or takes it off of me, because it doesn't matter. At this stage of the game, there is more or less just enough people playing and few too many builds for that amount of people that you can't ever really call ownership on a build. Other people might try and they'll say, yeah, that's my build. And I did that first, but no one cares at this point, basically, because it should be obvious that someone will eventually discover this, and maybe someone else has done it first, long before you, even if you think you're the first, because there's just that many people playing the game now.
Do you think there's still like stuff to discover that would be considered, or that is a big enough discovery when it comes to build synergy and whatnot that has not yet? Like, is there enough in the game for that to occur?
Yeah, I think so. Like, it's probably not going to be too game breaking very often, but it definitely still exists. I mean, there's still plenty of times where I'll play a skill or a certain interaction, and I'll be like, "Holy shit, this is like, why did no one tell me about this, or why has this not come to light before?" So it happens all the time with me, and I'm not even someone that experiments too much with the craziest side of things. And well, I'd say probably like once a week on the Reddit, something would pop up where there's a few crazy interactions that people didn't really see before, that some of these mad scientists are just, working around the clock to figure out. So there's definitely still plenty of that sort of stuff out there.
Sure. I was watching you the other day, and people were asking you. I think the question a lot of people get asked the most is like, "What are you most excited about of the new league?" And you said, not to take words out of your mouth, but my understanding is that you are not that interested in the actual mechanics of the league. You're more interested in the new skills. Can you kind of like talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, because I mean, mechanics are always going to be just something to do during the league, a bit of a side piece of content. Whereas for me, the meat of the leagues or the new patches is always going to be building around either new skills or revamped skills. Because a new skill just always feels like it brings something different to the game, just the way you play it, the way you build around it, and just try and figure out the best way to use it. And then the revamped skills just breathe new life into your old skills, which kind of feels like a new skill. Whereas league mechanics, they just feel kind of like a side piece of content, usually, especially because they're not the entire focus of a league quite often. You'll just engage with it every, couple minutes out of every 10, 20 minutes or so. So it can be good. It can be just kind of something you might ignore for most of the league. So I don't really ever focus too much on the league mechanic, and especially because these days they also just are kind of confusing until you actually get your hands on them yourself. So if you can get in there, you can play them, and you can figure it out. You go, oh yeah, that's a really cool league mechanic. I enjoy doing that. Then that's great. But up until that point, I think it's always a bit hit or miss. You don't know if it's going to be good. You don't know what it's going to do for your gameplay. So I just tend to focus on the skill side of things.
Sure. People like me and Co, the 3.0ers, let's call them, people that jumped into PoE around 3.0, which was a pretty big patch for the game, never had a chance to experience anything prior to that. If there was one thing or one league that you kind of wish got brought back or had a chance for us to experience, what would that be?
Oh, Jesus. I don't really know how to answer that. 3.0, is that when they put in the 10 acts though?
Yes.
Right.
Chat saying breach, whatever that means.
Yeah, everyone's saying something like breach. I think one of the biggest shakeups for me from memory was when Atziri first came into play, but not everyone really had to go through that. Maybe when they expanded Act 3 into Act 4. So we had 3 acts for a long time, and then they finally released Act 4. And the end boss, Malachi, which I'm sure you've all faced at this point, was a lot harder than he is right now. He was like a brick wall for a lot of people to come across in normal. Like for me, as an experienced player, someone that had gone through the acts many, many times, I started out that league and got to Malachi, and it took me, I think, 10 to 15 minutes to kill him on my bow character, which is just pathetic.
What was the difference? Was it just more HP, harder mechanics, hit harder, all the above?
All of the above. He hit pretty damn hard, but in normal, he just had much more life than most other things. So when a boss like has a lot of life and you have to engage with him for a long time, he becomes so much more dangerous. So even right now, Malachi's kind of dangerous, but he dies almost instantly. So it doesn't really matter. If you just all of a sudden give him 1,000% more HP, he's going to become kind of a tough boss. And back then, he just had a lot of HP. You had to do a lot of running around in circles. And then once you actually got around to Cruel, he was just like overtuned to high hell. So he was killing a lot of Cruel characters, and that was a really big roadblock there as well. He had a lot more life and a lot more damage than he really should have at that stage.
Was there any skill or any build back then that people started using where you just kind of looked at and were like, what? How did this? Like, how did the devs let this occur? Like, this is so unbelievably better than everything else out there. How is this a thing right now? Has that ever happened for you?
Yeah, I suppose. At least not necessarily a skill. Oh, actually, no, you could even say skills. Things like when Blade Vortex first came out, like it was stacking 50 stacks of Blade Vortex instead of, I think currently it does 10, right? Back then it did 50. It would tick like individually. So it wasn't just a per 1 second basis, as in it would tick like 50 a second.
Jesus.
And that would also stack power charges. That would give you all kinds of crazy other stuff. And yeah, things like that, just a single skill that came out like that were pretty crazy. But probably the biggest thing I ever thought that was just crazy to put in was the Vinctar Flask, the Legacy Vinctar Flask, if you guys are familiar with it.
Not the legacy version. I know the Flask, but not the legacy version. What was different about it?
Well, so the current Flask is okay. Like it shocks everything around you. It gives you a bit of leech. The Legacy version had 2 uses, so you could sustain it pretty comfortably. It also still had a lot of leech, like 20 or 30% leech to life and mana, but it also shocked everything around you for 50%, and it also gave you instant leech and mana. So you didn't need Valpact anymore. You then all of a sudden had builds dealing, let's say 100 lightning damage that would shoot up to from 0 to 100 life instantly, as well as infinite mana sustain. And you could sustain that thing as long as you wanted. So it was, I don't know, it was stupid. It gave you so much more damage and made you unkillable, and it was pretty easy to achieve.
Well, let's go the opposite of that because I don't want to shit on GGG. Let's give them some praise. What's the change that you kind of herald as not necessarily the best, but what's something that GGG has done where you're just kind of like, oh, that's smart. Like that was an interesting way to solve that issue or that problem when it comes to a patch or maybe just a new item or anything like that, new skill.
I mean, I can't really just about everything they do for me is pretty good. So I'm always like blown away with the patches and the content they give us. So it'd be too hard to really decipher one thing. Chat's saying lockstep. I mean, yeah, the way they fixed lockstep was amazing. Because a long time ago there was a lot of desync in the game, and that was a big turnoff for most people trying the game. So you'd it's just like basically a lot of rubber banding. You'd run around, get hit, and then just warp back to another place. You never really knew where your character was. Eventually, they fixed that, and it was through the lockstep system, and it was a lot more intuitive where you'd get hit, you'd always be where you were, that sort of thing. That was a big one. But yeah, I don't know. I don't really have any specific examples besides just that lockstep thing. Like every single time they have a lot of content come out, kind of blows me away because I don't really expect much. From the leagues or from the skills. I'm just like, yeah, a few new things would be cool. Maybe just a restart, that's all right. And then they have the Act 4, the Act 5, the Act 10. All of a sudden, they have these big new leagues like Breach and Delve, all these new skills, and all that stuff just always blows me away.
Yeah, I think that universal across the player base, every 3 months they come out with something. And it's just like, how do you continue to do this? Even for me and Code jumping in at 3.0, the fact that they've put out, what is it? Is this 3.7 or 3.6? 3.6. They've done it 6 times in a row. We're just kind of always surprised by that whenever that video initially launches. Let's swap topics here and talk about your effect. What when do you think the MathiL effect? When were you conscious, I guess, of the MathiL effect?
Whew. Jeez, I don't know. I guess that would had to be maybe a couple years ago or something like that. I mean, it's been a while now. I can't even remember a life without the MathiL effect at this stage. So, the MathiL effect, for anyone unfamiliar, is just me. Whatever I use, whatever build I use, people will. Well, I think initially it started out as people wanting to play the builds, and then that just drove certain item prices up, and that meant that I was kind of impacting the economy, whether negatively or positively. It was definitely impacting the economy, and certain item prices would go up, and then it was harder to get those items. I think initially it was because I had a few popular builds and people wanted to play those builds and use those items. At a certain point, it switched to just people that wanted to make easy money off of the effect, and they started to buy up items as soon as they caught any sort of whiff of what item I was going to use, buy up every single item on the market, and then just flood the market with those items after I'd established the character and the guide, something like that. And it just turned toxic very quickly. So I have to be careful of what items I use. I have to look out for certain items to avoid, and make sure I don't hype up an item too much, even if it's really good. And it's pretty annoying at this point, but it is what it is.
You said you're conscious about it. Have you ever used or overhyped an item to where you're just like, Jesus fuck, I'm never I can't even put out, does it affect you in the sense that I can't put this build out because now it's just completely unattainable for people that would watch my guides?
I mean, yeah, that's what I mean by I try to avoid that stuff, because for the most part, if I can jump onto a build or an item that has at least a fair amount of availability, then that's fine. So I try not to do anything that's going to be too hard to get in the long term. If, let's say, there's 30 to 40 of an item out there on the market, I probably can't touch that item and make a build with it, because they'll be all gone, and then I destroy the economy in that sense. So it does happen every now and again where I'll play with an item that's not too special, but it turns out to be really good, and then the market is screwed. But that was mostly, I think, unintentional. So it does happen, but I try and avoid anything that's just tough to get.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time new items, because you never really know what they're going to do, and that could just ruin the market once again.
Sure. I saw Chad all spamming Void Forge. Would you say that's been the biggest item that you've had an effect on when it comes to the market?
Recently, for sure. Not this league. This league, I couldn't really touch the Void Forge market because two-handers are in such a sad state. So when I first bought Void Forge and started playing with it, it was 5 chaos, and it didn't really change by the end of it. There was just one time at the start of the league, or closer to the start of the league, I said I was going to use Void Forge, and then everyone was like, buy, 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 and all of a sudden it went up to an Exalt, and then I was like, yeah, nah, I don't think I'm going to do it. And then they were like, shit, sell, 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 pushing their Void Forges away. So it's just kind of a debate in that sense. And I've wanted to do that on a much grander scale.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask.
A character yeah, I wanted to get a character level 60, 70, really hype it up, and then throw that shit away. But it just, I don't know, it feels like a waste of my time and a waste of the time of people that actually want to watch me and all that, to just then, do the switcheroo. But yeah, I'd say the Void Forge, and then also when Blade Flurry first came out and Poison was a big thing, I kind of ruined the Bino's kitchen knife market too. They released this little assassin build that had a strong Blade Flurry component to it. And the start of the next league meant binos were 2 exalts or something, and damn near impossible to get. Whereas for the most part, they're a 1C item.
Sure. I mean, April 1st is coming up. If you want to do any goofs, that would be a good time.
April 1st.
You could
Sure.
do something.
Okay.
You could do something.
I'll keep that in mind.
And even just mentioning it, right? That's the MathiL effect in effect, because then maybe people aren't going to buy those items around that time because now they think it might happen. So you got to.
Yeah.
I don't understand
make
how
my-
you haven't trolled the fuck out of the entire community thus far, but maybe that just speaks to my character and your character.
I'd say that's probably a bit more of an indicator. Yeah.
Yeah. 'Cause
It exactly does that. Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yes. Yes.
Maybe
I
I'm
gotta
just lazy.
imagine like
yeah.
that's got to be great. Like or I don't know. Actually, you know what? I'll let you describe. Like, how does it feel to like wield power like that? Like, I'm serious. Like, it's in a free to play game, and you know all kind of stuff. It's not like detrimental to the world economy, but like, it's got. How does that feel? To have like an effect over a game that you.
Well, he's got the Spider-Man, Uncle Ben poster in his room. He reads it every night. Great power, great responsibility. It's there. He's got people in check.
Kinda. That's kind. I don't think exactly to that quote, but I definitely feel like as though I've got a responsibility to not ruin certain items in certain markets because I know that certain items out there are very fun and people want to play with them. Like when Poet's Pen was a big thing, I avoided it for the entire league because if I touched it, I know so many more people or so many fewer people would get to play with it. So I had to avoid it for the entire league. It's not a huge deal if I skip an item. It's not a huge deal if I don't play a certain build. I've got a lot of other things I can do. But to answer the question, I mean, yeah, it's flattering and all that, but it honestly sucks at this point because I don't like to negatively impact the economy. And I don't like that certain douchebags out there are making profits off of me because they just don't deserve it. The coolest thing, though, was that my friend did get... My friend has another friend who was grading papers at university that he works at, and he came across one of his papers that referenced me as a economy influencer in certain microeconomies, and he's like, because he's talking about all sorts of economies and stuff, and then he's got an entire excerpt going on about the streamer MathiL one in a game Path of Exile is an example of an influencer in economies because whenever he has this MathiL effect or whatever, and he goes on about that and showed me the entire excerpt, I'm like, oh damn, that's pretty cool that someone just like included that in their paper in some sort of university study.
You should try to find that, and if it's not on the internet already, I'm sure people would love to read about the MathiL effect in a college discourse.
It was a small excerpt just as a part of a thing, so I think it was just like a couple paragraphs, and I'm not sure. Maybe I've got a command in chat for that.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I could dig that up.
Yeah. It would. I'm sure people would be interested in reading it. Has GGG ever reached out to you or talked to you about it all? Like, hey, we got this new item. We'd love if people would try it out. Why don't you put it into a build? Math, why don't you check this item out? And then just see what happens?
No, I mean, there is so much potential for like sort of developer to streamer interaction there. But they seem pretty hands-off about most things. Like they don't really ever ask me to do anything. Like they don't want to push an MTX or a certain item or a certain skill or anything like that. I think there's definitely potential there, but for the most part, I guess they're just happy with what I'm doing, or it's enough, or they just don't care about this entire subsection of the advertising sort of market, and they're just happy to let it go its own route. So no, they don't really ever do anything like that for me, at least not for me anyway.
Right. Go ahead.
Quick question: is GGG one of those kind of companies that might name something in the game after you, or have they done that, or something like that? Because if I were you, I'd push for that. I'd be like, maybe you should name it the MathiL weapon.
Yeah. Well, I think they have their own options in game for that already. Like you can create a divination card at the moment, so just one of these collectible cards that turn into different items. You can create your own cards and have your own little effect or lasting imprint on them. You can call them something special, have a picture in there. Same with unique items. Like a few years back, you could buy supporter packs where in turn you could then create unique items with the developers and leave a sort of impact there your own way. But otherwise, I don't think there's been really any examples of them going out of their way themselves to do anything to do with the community. The only thing I could really think of is they put Kriparian in the credits of the game That's about all I could think of.
Yeah. Do you have a div card or anything right now?
No, I have been offered by viewers plenty of times. Like, I've bought a supporter pack, got a divination card or a unique. Sorry. Would you like to, use it and make something? I've always turned it down. I don't think I'm creative enough on the sort of unique or design side of things to really go for that, and I'd rather just leave it up to other people.
Because I'm just saying, you could get your own thing, and then you could use the MathiL effect to make sure that everyone wants that thing, and have some fun. And then
It's good
yeah,
good
people-
synergy there, I know, but
The divinity card reward would give you 1 item on MathiL's current build in the current league.
Jesus,
Yeah.
it'll take some coding to get that one to work right.
yeah, that'd be good. You have to submit your build every time you do it, and that's how the card knows. Yeah, that's how GG knows.
That'd be pretty
I
awesome.
want to know, do you do this in your spare time? Like when you're done streaming, you're like, I really want to do another map. Okay, just a little bit more. Or when you're done streaming, you're like, fuck it, I'm done. I'm gonna forget about it for a few hours.
As far as
Or try.
playing the game is concerned at this point, yeah, I pretty much just take all time off as soon as I'm done streaming. Maybe sometimes I'll want to jump into a map while I'm like making a video. Otherwise, the game outside the game in Path of Building, where you just get to plan your builds and mess around with certain interactions. I will do that off stream sometimes. Actually, a lot of my planning is off stream at this point. I just don't often do too much planning. I have a general idea of what I'm going to do and just jump into it. But sometimes when I do have to plan, I'll do it off stream, because if I do that on stream, people just yell random shit at me, suggestions, and say, take this passive, use that item, use this skill. And it just gets very distracting. So I try not to. But otherwise, yeah, I'm
It's
just
so
pretty
weird that
That's
people will shout at you like, hey, I
Yeah.
know better than you. Like, no, you don't. No. It's like, hey, Jordan, you should have done a layup. You should have dunked there. Michael Jordan, I'm yelling at you because I know better than you. Like, I don't understand.
Yeah, I mean,
that.
I guess that's basically how it is. Yeah, like, as a good enough analogy. They'd definitely just, if you gave them the avenue, yes, people would still backseat game the greatest athletes in history, because it's just what they want to do, I guess. I don't know. They like to think they know better. But I mean, this is a very flexible game, and there is a lot of stuff. So yeah, I still entertain possibilities from other people when they say stuff, and a lot of the time it can be relevant. A lot of the time it's not, because they're not even paying attention to what I'm doing or everything I've done, and they'll be like, "Hey, you should use this," and I'm like, "You mean this that I'm already using?" They're like, "Oh, sorry, didn't actually see that." It's like, well, you did no work on your behalf before telling me what I should be doing, and that's pretty frustrating. Yeah. But the initial question of, do I still play this off stream? Not really.
Yeah.
For the most part, like, it's a work day. I still enjoy what I do, and I enjoy playing Path of Exile, but I'm just wiped out after playing and having to answer questions all day long.
That's actually brings up something else that I want to talk about, or wanted you to talk about. You're active, like physically active, which is so strange.
I just love
don't
that
understand
that's a
this.
thing that we could bring up, like, as streamers, like, yeah, you do shit outside. Like, what's that about? How's outside?
Yeah.
How does that feel?
How is that? What do you do outside?
How do you not
Yeah.
burn?
Outside's pretty cool. I think you guys should try it every now and again.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Talk to us about outside.
Alright.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you live in
Yeah, see-
Australia, though. Easy for you to say. Like,
Sure.
fucking
We have
Montana
good
is
weather.
terrible.
Well, we have weather, like good weather, a lot of the time. But for a couple of weeks this year, we have had like 40 plus degrees days for like an entire week.
We don't know what
In
that means.
Celsius, which is like 113 Fahrenheit, something like that.
What the
I don't know.
fuck? Yeah. Fuck.
Like
Woo.
straight up opening the door and an oven hits you in the face. And
Well, that's just Australia.
like some-
That's just how it goes.
I call that uninhabitable.
Yeah.
well,
That's not where humans reside. Like
no,
Mars.
they're not supposed to, I guess. But I mean, I think that's just the direction we're going at this point. In any case, what's happening there is, yeah, like you say, how do you do the whole exercise thing and how do you active? I don't see how you can't. Like it's a match made in heaven, gaming and doing stuff, because you're sitting around chilling all day, and then you just want to get out there and do something. You want to use your body after just, sitting around for a while and
There
not. You guys, no, you're not getting that.
and do something. What?
I think
It's-
every
it's-
gamer just went, I wish I was that motivated. Like,
It's
how did-
it's just like everything
I
else.
wish
You
I
form a
felt that
habit. Yeah.
Yeah, what
you
was
form a habit.
what?
It's like go on.
Is that something that like started when you were growing up? Is that something your parents still do? Because I think that's like something that you have to be taught, or something that you have to practice. Because I mean, fuck.
Yeah.
I don't. The only other person I know that does that is Bajira, and he's a goddamn like professional weightlifter. Everyone else just kind of like, that donut's looking pretty good right now, chat. And then we eat the donut and we move on with their life, right? Like,
I mean, look, the donuts always look pretty good, and you can have one, but you can also balance it out by doing something. And it feels good to eat that donut guilt-free, to not even think about, what it's doing to you, because you've earned that. So that's where I'm coming from with the junk food aspect of things. When I, can work out, when I have done plenty of work, I can then, eat that sort of stuff without worrying about it at all. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of just you build a sorry. You build a habit, and it becomes part of who you are.
Sure.
Early on, parents threw us at every sport out there and saw what would stick. So when me and my brother, who's a couple years older than me, were kids, they threw us at gymnastics, tennis, swimming, all kinds of different stuff up until the age of like 8 to 10. And then when you're in school, they mandatorily make you play or do a certain sport. And you just eventually something sticks, and you want to do it. And for me, that was athletics or running. And then eventually, past 5 years, 6 years even, went out, tried bouldering, rock climbing, and I thought that was a lot of fun. And I just stuck to it. Before that, I've tried plenty of other sports, but nothing really ever stuck until the running and the climbing. And then those things are just a lot of fun for me. And it just becomes a habit, and you end up, kind of having the itch to do it after a while. You take a couple of days off and you go, I have to get out there and run. I have to go out there and climb.
have you ever thought?
It may seem weird, but I get that. I there was a time, long time, eons ago, when I was
Zeke's
like,
about 80 years old, by the way, so it's been a while.
Yeah,
Right,
I'm
yeah.
like fucking Methuselah, but
Regale us of your days.
I would get up every morning and exercise for an hour. I would jog for an hour, and it got to be like you really like look forward to it, and you kind of need it a little bit. I haven't done that in years, but I get it.
Man,
No, I
it's hard to
gotta
get in.
Bouldering though, I wanted to bring up bouldering. Is there any difference between bouldering and rock climbing, or are they just different words for the same thing?
No, bouldering specifically refers to like the smaller scale. So rock climbing is, it can be 40 meters up or something like that with ropes, harnesses, and a partner that belays you, or, keeps you on the ground, all that. But bouldering specifically is just something that goes rocks that go up to maybe 4 meters, 5 meters height. And then you have like a mat or a crash pad below you. So you're never really tied in. You don't have any ropes, and you just can jump back down whenever you're ready to finish. So it's supposed to be slightly higher intensity, tougher moves, more stuff to figure out, but it's a lot, lower to the ground. And I guess you could say safer, but rock climbing's pretty safe as well. It's just maybe scarier.
Sure. Does the inverse ever happen where your active outside friends think like, how the fuck do you play video games all day? Like, what is that about?
Oh, of course. Like
Yeah.
to the norms, what we do is like just so weird.
Yeah.
Like you could, they'll be like, oh yeah, man, I know what you mean. I played FIFA for like 2 hours the other day. I lost the entire day. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, this is back. You talk to them back when you're doing like 16-hour days for WoW, just like grinding day in, day out, skipping every single responsibility ever.
Right.
And no, they just would not ever understand that. And if you couldn't really talk about that sort of thing, because it wouldn't ever grasp them what you're doing, why you're doing it. as opposed to, like playing games for 4 hours on a Saturday. That's like throwing your life away as far as they're concerned.
Sure.
So it's
Unless you-
it's go on.
I was just gonna make a dumb joke. I'm sorry for interrupting. I was gonna
All right.
say,
No-
unless you've considered really 100% actually considered getting like adult diaper. I wonder if like, cause that means I wouldn't have to get up. Like, if you've ever like really like thought about that and went, not yet, not today.
You think that's the turning point where all of a sudden they've got a point.
You might be onto something, Zeke. You might be onto something.
Yeah. Nah.
Before we move on from the active life, I have to ask, did you win your race? I know you had a race earlier because we were scheduling a little bit around that. So how did it go?
I did not.
You did not?
Yeah,
Okay.
it went okay. Like this is, we have a couple of these throughout the year. It's the invitational series for our city where they just invite the top athletes for every category to then compete against each other for the race just midweek. And that was the race yesterday. So I didn't want to schedule a race and then do my patch notes while drunk, which everyone wants me to do, and then this all in one hit. But I don't have much opportunity to run these things. So I had to take it and go for it. And I ended up coming fourth out of the field and running, it's an 800 meters. I ran 157 for anyone that knows anything about those times, which for me at the moment is okay. It's not quite my personal best, but I am getting a bit older and it is tougher to maintain these times. So I did all right, but no, I didn't win. And I never had a chance of winning. It was the top few guys are just leagues ahead at the moment.
Gotcha. Well, we appreciate you jumping on the show after an 800-meter race and then a 2-hour drunk stream or something. How long? That was like what?
4 hours.
4-hour drunk. Okay, I didn't realize.
Yeah,
I've not looked at
I
the
had a
patch
1
notes.
hour
They seem
nap
quite long.
in between here and there.
Jesus. All right. Well.
And you said 157. You mean an hour and 57 minutes, right?
If you count the driving there, the warming up, and then the driving back, yeah, something like that.
Something like that. Yeah, you're around there. You're on the right time.
I think something gets lost in the metric.
Yeah.
To
Australia is weird as shit.
imperial.
I don't know how it works. Either.
Oh, it's upside down meters though, because they're in Australia, right?
Right. Yeah, the track is
right.
actually the opposite direction that it is here, I believe, is how that works.
Also, I just want to give a total. I give you kudos because what time is it where you are?
Well, at the moment, it'd be 5:30.
Yeah,
Yeah,
5:30 in
so we
the
started
fucking
at
morning, dude.
4:30.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, man.
but yeah, like right now I'm pretty tired, and it was a rough wake up. But for the most, basically every day I wake up at 5 because I start my stream at 5:30. I like to just get it out of the way in the morning, free up the rest of my day, and also I think it hits the EU-US crowds the best from my time zone. So I'm used to being up at this time.
What was that, Co?
How long do you normally stream every day?
It just depends on the league, but the past couple leagues have been really quite engaging for me. So I do about 6 or 7 hours every day, and I take off 1 day a month maybe if I really feel like it.
Lazy.
See, yeah. Chat was wondering why we don't have guests because this fucking asshole comes on here and talks about how he ran a 157 and 800, flexing his wearing a goddamn tank top on this shit. Now you know. We just can't.
Yeah, the new questionnaire for being on Drop Frames is: do you know what outside is, and do you think you look good in tank top?
Yeah.
If the answer to those are what we want, then you can come on the show. Otherwise, nope, not allowed.
Hey, I'm not trying to flex on anyone here, and it honestly doesn't matter to me if you're doing any of this or not doing any of this. It's my way of life. You can lead your own, and I think it's perfectly viable, and I still respect everything as long as you're working hard in whatever you're doing and enjoying it. I really don't care. It's just
You'd be a good politician, by the way. I'm just saying.
You reckon?
Yeah, you'd be good at politics.
I think they say you got to be pretty insane to get into any of that. So anyone that's good at politics or anyone at any level of politics that you might like is pretty crazy to begin with because who the hell puts themselves through that?
You might be you might be onto something. That might be true.
Yeah, and for those of you listening, like to what JP just said and what like talking shit and all this kind of stuff, it's salt, it's jealousy.
Oh yeah,
it's all that
100%.
shit. Like,
yeah.
I wish I had the motivation to even try and do this shit anymore, but I'm fucking nah. I don't got that, and I wish I did.
I mean, it's all relative. You might have something you're jealous of here. I've got plenty of stuff I'm jealous of other people in other categories. Plenty of streamers that do plenty of other things that I wish I could do, but can't, or just too lazy to do.
See, now I take back the politics and say you should become a life coach, because this is all just like positivity over it. You and Co should start a series about positivity in life, and that I'll be the producer. Zeke will be the hype man. We'll go make some money.
That's one of the things I was talking about. I wish I could be as positive as Co, because if you tune into my stream, I definitely am not and cannot be. But, in a small window, like a little podcast or my videos, I can slap down some positivity. On a daily 6-hour grind, you see the real me, and it's not quite so positive.
The cracks start to show.
Yeah.
That's actually something I wanted to kind of circle back around for your channel. Like, when like someone new comes to your channel, watches you for the first time, what do you want the takeaway for them to be?
Take everything with a kind of grain of salt. Like, I talk in heavy amounts of sarcasm, and I quite often, to most people, come off as a huge douchebag on first impressions. They think, wow, this guy's a real asshole. But then they kind of get to know me, and they kind of understand my mannerisms and my sense of humor, and they think, hey, maybe he's kind of funny, or maybe he's got a point. I get what he's saying, or he wasn't being serious there. So I don't know. The takeaway is everything's kind of lighter than it may seem, and I'm never really being too serious or actually caring too much about everything. It's just a laid back atmosphere, and I, as a person, am just laid back and don't particularly want to worry too much about anything.
Right on.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Well, let's jump into in the patch notes. You obviously just did a 4-hour stream, so they're somewhat fresh in your brain.
Sure.
Where do you feel the game's going in the new league? How are you feeling about everything they put out there yesterday?
I mean, it's supposed to be kind of a spellcaster league and a self-cast spellcaster league, and there's definitely a pretty good push towards that. A lot of things were just minorly buffed so that they're a bit more quality of life for self-casting, just things that feel a bit better, a bit faster, a bit more damage. But for the most part, not too many changes. It was just kind of little tweaks here or there, a few skills that should also be kind of strong and be more self-cast meta-y. Overall at the moment it looks like it's heading towards spellcaster meta. It's probably not going to be too heavy on the attacks, and especially not too heavy on the melee builds, because they currently need some love, and just giving the love towards energy shield and spells means that, well, that's going to be kind of what we play this almost entire league. Like, someone like me who plays a lot and has a lot of experience with these builds, I'll still be playing melee builds, I'll still be playing attack builds, but it's definitely not looking like the optimal choice at the moment.
Do you think?
So,
go ahead,
with
Cole.
this build, I heard there were some changes. Like, I'm doing my first minion build this season, but I've been told that the patch has reduced my options a little bit. Was there anything like? Are there any minion builds that really would stand out this league after patch notes?
I don't know if it's really the patch has really influenced anything too minion-y. Like, I am not personally someone that plays many minion builds, basically any ever, but so I don't have much area of expertise in that. But reading the patch notes, I don't think anything's really changed as far as your minion decisions go. Anything that was viable before should still be roughly viable now. There was just one kind of buff to convocation, which I think is bringing your minions into you all at once, I think is what it does. but I could be completely wrong. Other than that, I don't think there's anything really changed. Like whatever you had planned out, if it was going to work, it should probably still work, and I think it'll be perfectly viable. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have any ideas what you're thinking yet, Ko, besides just an outright minion build?
I was gonna go Golemancer, but then I was told that that's a bit probably not the best starter build, especially for
It's a
someone
little
that hasn't done.
expensive, yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's a couple of specific items you need for that one. Yeah.
Yeah, some of the jewels are
Yeah.
pricey.
So wraiths have been suggested, a wraith summon build, and Skella something.
Skeletal mages?
Skelemancers.
Or that?
Maybe
Yeah,
Skeleman.
yeah,
but
supposedly those are pretty good.
I want to find something
Yeah,
that'll be
no.
viable to like do some end game content, because I mean I'm that PoE player that still hasn't killed Shaper, so like
Yeah.
I'd love to have a build that could kind of carry me down there finally, but we'll kind of see where it goes.
I bet
You're
there's some
pretty
videos
thorough
out
with
there you
that.
can watch, or maybe a YouTube channel that you could check out.
Yeah, like I said, not necessarily for the minion side of things. Like I love to have more viewers and all that, but I will happily direct any minion related questions to someone else, because I don't want to misdirect you as to what I do and don't know. And I don't know shit about minions.
You just don't enjoy the playstyle? Is that all it comes down to?
Yeah, more or less. Like I want to do my own actions, my own killing, and the minion AI has been something that I've never been too happy with in pretty much any game that I've tried it out in. Like if it was more of a World of Warcraft style system where you have a pet and it's got a pet bar, you can control it. In that sense, it's not too bad, but still not super comfortable. Yeah, I just mostly want to do my own actions, kind of.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
See, I'm the opposite. I'm like, you know what, y'all go do my shit for me. I'm just gonna hang
I can
back.
understand. Yeah.
I'm much more of what we call a manager.
Mm.
Yeah.
I would say,
Not take credit for whatever they do.
I don't know how nerfed Burning Spectre. I guess Burning Spectre's got pretty nerfed last patch or something like that, but that's the only strong minion build that I've ever played, Ko. So I don't have any suggestions for you as well. Maybe chat will shout out some builds that you can look into, I'm sure. You mentioned melee and how, for whatever reason, it's just kind of been a I don't want to say afterthought, but let's use the word afterthought for a lot of these patches. Do you think that that's just kind of where GGG is going right now? It's not necessarily that they hate melee users or people that prefer melee builds, but they're just kind of favoring caster right now. Then in the next couple of patches, they're going to hopefully throw in some melee stuff. Or what do you say to people that are like, I'm a melee only player?
Hold out a little longer, because supposedly the next big league should be a very melee focused one. So 3.6 is the one coming up, and that's kind of a spell focused one. 3.7 is going to be supposedly revolved around melee balance. I imagine that means they're going to introduce a few new skills, rebalance a lot of the old ones, and also some of the melee type ascendancies. So it will become better. I imagine that could well just be a big melee patch where things get swung completely the opposite direction in the pendulum, and melee scales a lot easier, a lot better. Currently, I mean, it's just spells are probably more intuitive, less gear dependent, and they could have been going more in that direction or prioritizing that to start with, simply because it's easier to bring in players that way, newer players, just because it's easier to get into the game and have more success with these sorts of skills. Whereas melee can be more confusing, can be harder to scale, harder to gear. So it's more of or less of a priority than fixing up spells and all that. That'd be my guess. But yeah, there will be a melee patch next league, and it should, as far as I think, shift a completely different meta and balance at that point.
Sure. I think one of the fun things about the show is that we have a lot of people that watch that have never touched PoE and potentially will never touch PoE. But for those that are wanting to jump in for the first time, and really just any new Path of Exile player, what's like the small tidbits, the first couple of bits of advice that you give them, or that you would give them to a brand new player that's potentially looking at the screen and just saying like, oh, I want to do that someday. That looks fun.
Yep. Give it a chance. Like, give it a good chance or a bit of playthrough before you fully judge it. It takes a few hours, let's say something like 5 to 6, before you're really feeling like you're making some progress and your character's getting somewhere where you're starting to link up some gems, starting to use some funkier skills and explore more of the story. It depends what type of a player you are. If you've played these types of games before, it's kind of fun to then explore on your own and make some sort of weird build and try out different skills. But if you're really not that type of person, you can by all means just jump in and grab a starter build from one of the popular streamers or YouTubers. There's lots of them out there. You can pick whichever thing looks kind of coolest. And they're usually called starter builds. They're builds that are supposed to function off of low gear and low sort of skill ceiling. So just give it a chance. Wait until it's really truly ramped a little bit until you throw it away, and use the help menu. They do have this sort of little in-game tutorial system now that should be pretty helpful and answer a lot of the questions that you're going over. Somewhere in the bottom right-hand corner, little exclamation mark, the help menu there.
How many times have you answered that? That was a well, almost rehearsed answer. How many times do you answer that on your stream? Every single day?
Actually, like that type of thing, not really ever.
Really? Okay.
What build do I go with? Or, I'm new, what build do I play? That I have to answer, close to 100 times a day. But, tips in general for newer players, I don't really have to go over that too many times. So I don't know, it just kind of makes sense, I think.
Sure.
What I said, as opposed to really rehearsing.
Some more like macro focused questions, kind of taken away from the patch and just looking at PoE as a game in general. What do you think have been some of the like biggest flounders or biggest issues with the game? Just over time, something's never been addressed or something that should be fixed, but has never been touched. Not necessarily talking patch notes, but just like new user experience, passive skill tree just being so big, the trading. What do you think are some of the bigger issues?
I mean, it's hard to say because, like I said, I think generally they do a pretty good job in fixing things and making the game what it is. And that's why I'm still playing it, and it's why a lot of us still are. But if it were up to me, maybe... like trading can definitely be a bit smoother at this point, as a lot of people will have just now said. The trading experience overall, it does kind of grind down on you. And especially the way you currently trade, you need like a premium stash tab. And I think that should be something that just everyone gets at this point. Like even just more stash tabs in general to begin with is probably something that should be a God-given right, given that every single... league and patch brings in a huge cluster of new items that just cluster your stash even more. So there's that, but without the whole trading thing, I'd say the thing they probably most drop the ball on, in my opinion anyway, is just the confusing aspect of the game. Some things feel like they're confusing for the sake of confusing, rather than like a necessity because that's the only way it can be. Well, there it is. Instead, it's just like, nah, fuck them. We're gonna make them figure it out through all these different words and all these mechanics and all this. Whereas it could be so much smoother, I feel, and it could be simpler. And I might be way off base. Maybe they've done their best to make it as intuitive and smooth as possible, and I'm just stupid, but it kind of feels that way, that some of these things could be a lot simpler, and that's just where it might turn off a lot of new people and a lot of players, because they're just like, I don't understand anything, it doesn't feel right, it doesn't feel like it should, and I'm done, gone.
Right. What side do you fall on when it comes to player trading versus like auction house? Do you have a strong feeling on either side? That seems to be a big overarching conversation all the time.
I don't think I have a strong input one way or the other. Like, I'm okay with the trade system the way it is. I could keep going with it. But to say, we don't need an auction house or the auction house is the devil, I'd say we basically have an auction house right now that has an extra step or two. And it already feels like an auction house. You look up an item, you search exactly what you want, and then you hit buy. But then you have a slight delay on that buy because you have to message a person, and then they have to just invite you and then say TY. So that's not really player interaction from like any real part. It's just a tedious step in between. But I see their fear of putting in an actual auction house in that it just will create sort of certain markets that are much more easily exploitable, and certain items will just be much easier to sell. And I don't. It's hard to really put it into words, but there is definitely a fear in creating the auction house because it's going to make some things a lot easier to attain and make certain aspects of the game just a lot simpler. And I think that's more what they're afraid of. Like if you could just buy essences like that, essence crafting might be so much more prolific in the game. And maybe you could create much better items that way. Same with delve fossils.
I'm trying to think how I want to phrase this. Do you feel like trade botters, people that kind of run the trade market from behind the scenes, in the sense of the people that kind of dictate, the people that actually use the MathiL effect, I guess is really a good way to say that. Do you think that they have like a pretty big impact on the game, more so than most players would believe, or is it something that gets a little bit overblown and they don't have that much impact?
I don't necessarily know much about who the MathiL effectors are or people that do a lot of stuff like that. But the big conglomerate traders and maybe even trade bots are probably, a huge driving force in the game at the moment. Like if you're going out to buy chaos for your exalt, or convert some sort of currency, or buy a large amount of certain item, chances are you're interacting with someone that's doing nothing but trading all day, or a bot farmer. And they're a large reason that I can just, make an easy, quick trade and move on with my game, because someone out there has 10,000 chaos and they're ready to just convert. Or someone has farmed a lot of this certain item and they're ready to just sell them all in bulk. And it's not because it's just an individual player slowly grinding and farming there. I think it's mostly because they're either a bot or they've just sat there trading their way to the top. And I think it's a pretty large impact on the game and economy.
You think there's anything that can be done that the GG's not doing right now? Besides just outright like removing those people, or having some sort of, I think you can report people, but most people don't, because it's just easier to move on with your item and go do whatever you're going to do.
I don't really know. I couldn't give any sort of in-depth answer to that because I don't know exactly what they're doing. I know that there are plenty of bots or people that might be suspicious in activity that don't get banned on a regular basis that people think should get banned. But otherwise, I think they do still ban plenty of people, and they do have an entire contingent that focuses on bots and suspicious activity,
right,
and banning people. But I mean, I really wouldn't know, so I'd be talking out my ass with that one.
Yeah, it's kind of a...
We encourage that around here.
We do. Yeah, we do for sure. It's definitely an interesting problem. Blizzard, in a way, solved it, I should say, with quotes, by just having it to where you could buy gold from them. Like you could, they just made it so you can just buy and sell gold from them, right? So they kind of cut out the middleman there, but that doesn't necessarily work for GG. Yeah.
Are there still not gold selling sites undercutting Blizzard, surely?
I think that there are. Yeah. I don't know how much use they get when it's, sanctioned by Blizzard and it's already in the game. It's you hit a button and you buy a token and go put it on the auction house, and then you get your money pretty quickly because that stuff sells so fast. But obviously that's not something that can work for GG, because it's, you're working within a league, a 3-month structure, because no one really plays standard all that often. So I don't know. I'm curious to see if in future patches and specifically 4.0, if they just outright address any of that, or if they just kind of let it continue to happen, because you'll see in chat, and I think anyone that plays the game, like you said, have gotten the immediate response from a bot. They get in there and the trades go fast. You say TY, then you move on, right? Like it expedites the whole process, but it is a little bit of an annoying thing when you go and try to trade up currency and you see that someone has like 7,000 exalts, and you're just like, what the fuck? Like, why do you have 7,000? That's so much fucking currency at this point in the league, or any point in the league. So yeah.
I mean, I'm sure they could possibly do more because these sites do exist and there are plenty of them, and I'm sure they can be tracked more than they currently are. Like, I know for a fact that like maybe 3 or 4 of these item selling websites have approached me for sponsorship opportunities, and I'm like, do you not know this is not allowed or a real thing? They're like, yeah, we just want like an ad on your page, linking to our website, or maybe make a YouTube video about this. And it just blows my mind that they think I might agree to that.
Yeah.
They've even offered some handsome sums of money. But it's like, yeah, that doesn't fly. Like, even if I wanted to, can't do that. And yet they're still out there. They exist, and they have lots of money. So
yeah,
maybe, there could be more done.
Yeah, it's a thing. I don't know. Well, we're getting close to running out of time. You're going to be putting up your starter video for 3.6. Have you already decided on what those builds could potentially be, or are you still got to work away at it?
No. I basically wait for the patch notes. I read through the patch notes with the stream, and then I'll probably spend a better part of a day maybe trying to plan out a few builds and decide what could be a good one, what could be relatively good. And I try and keep it a little bit fresh. So not necessarily the best starter builds out there or the easiest ones, but they are usually, I try to make them so that they're good enough, but also a little bit of variety to them. At the moment, haven't really got too many ideas. I'll probably chuck in a couple of new skills and maybe 1 or 2 reliable, trustworthy skills.
Well, you got 14,000 people here, so we can eliminate some of the what should I start with at all possible. What skills are you thinking right now? Where would you throw people towards?
Like I said, I hadn't really given it too much thought. The new chaos skills and also essence drain itself should be pretty solid ones. Otherwise, I think all of the new holy skills seem pretty tasty as well at the moment. But God, I think it's hard to go wrong with just about any of the spells at the moment. A couple of my strongest ones were still brands that I played and think were good, and those nerfs definitely haven't really done much. So Armageddon brand, Storm brand should still be solid, clear builds. Arc totems, there should be nothing wrong with that one once again. But haven't really given it too much thought beyond that. Just probably chuck in any spell, use a caster, and chances are you're going to get pretty far.
All right. Bunch of people in chat asking me to ask you about ExileCon. I would assume you will be in attendance somewhat.
Yes, I do plan to go. That's something like November. And I was planning on going, and I should definitely make it, barring some unforeseen circumstances. Wanted to head up with a friend or two, maybe my brother. We hang out for a couple of days at the ExileCon, maybe do some climbing around New Zealand, and maybe if I can get a stream set up, maybe even do some streaming from there.
Nice. Anything that you're, we mentioned 4.0, not necessarily talked about it, but anything that you're just hoping that shows up, whether it's a graphical update or an engine update, like what's your pie in the sky there? What's your dream?
Well, like I said, they would just blow me away with whatever they're going to add. Like, I'm hoping, as I think is going to be the plan, to get like some of the models reworked of the characters and stuff. I mean, I love playing, fucking Barbie dress up within the game, so that's awesome for me. Just have the model of character be better, and then I can have cooler shit on that character. That's great as far as I'm concerned. I think that might end up happening. Besides that, I mean, I don't know what to expect. I was expecting a 1-act, maybe some league cool mechanics when they dropped 5 acts on us. So who knows? Maybe they'll double the acts. Maybe we'll go into space. Maybe we'll go underground. I'm expecting the unexpected. They said that this was supposed to be the sort of expansion to rival what could have been Diablo 4,
right,
which you would assume is going to be a big thing.
He said
but
Yeah.
maybe it won't be a big thing anymore. Maybe it still will be, but just not at the same time. But they were expecting Diablo 4 around this time, and they wanted to be able to rival it with this big 4.0. And I assume that means huge, huge things. So, I mean, I'm just sitting back along for the ride. I don't really expect much. I don't really shoot for much. I'm just there, ready to take whatever they give. If it's good, it's good. I'm going to play it. I'm going to praise it. If it's not so good, maybe I'll be looking elsewhere. But so far, they definitely have not let me down.
All right. Last question, stealing from chat once again. How much money have you spent on MTX, roughly?
A measly, maybe $4,000 or $5,000 at this point. You know,
Yeah.
just the bare minimum basics. I'm
It's
just
not-
trying to look pretty. It's acceptable. It's understandable, right?
Yeah.
The
No, I
absolute-
get it. Yeah. What was that, Go? I cut you off.
I said the absolute essentials.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
You got to have
I mean,
all
you
of it.
got to have like 48 hats.
Yeah.
What are you going to do with 40 hats?
You have to.
I'm not gonna find the optimal setup for my character.
That's true.
And then what? Am I supposed to do damage without the right hat?
Yeah.
No.
Right.
So,
A little
Get
secret
it.
about MathiL. He doesn't choose builds. He chooses MTX and then builds around that. So
that has actually happened a few times.
I'm aware that it has. Yeah. I know it's a thing. Well, cool. I appreciate you. And I know the other guys do. And I know everyone watching does as well for coming on the show. We usually give guests time to do some shout outs here to kind of pimp your stuff out. Tell people where they can check you out YouTube wise, Twitch wise. So here's your moment. Don't fuck it up, MathiL. All right. You only got one shot.
All right. Feel free to check out MathiL1 on Twitch. Just there's a one there because MathiL was taken and shit, whatever. So MathiL1 on Twitch. I'm there every single day. You know, one day off a month, something like that. I do try and run a bit of an Instagram where I will take photos of my various runnings, climbings, outings. Every so often. So that is what MathiL exists, I believe, on Instagram. Let me double check. Yep, MathiL exists on Instagram, same as the Twitter. I have just now discovered the follow function on Twitter, thanks to your good self, JP, and followed a few people. So now I do have a bit more of a Twitter presence, and I'll make sure to try and like, retweet, and tweet stuff there too. So yeah, that's pretty much it. The Twitch, the Twitter, the Instagram, the YouTube as well, actually. I mean, I do post YouTube videos there every couple of days, routinely throughout the past 5 years. And that is MathIlification on YouTube. Pretty much strictly Path of Exile content at the moment, but room to grow in the future. So who knows?
Cool. All right. Well, once again, thanks for joining us. Good luck at the league start. Everyone will be waiting for your videos to come out for what league starters they want to play. So I guess get back to work.
Or
man.
which ones to avoid, as people say.
Oh, that
put out a
too.
few
Yeah.
league starters,
Yeah.
And they go, yeah, not touching that one. It might cost something.
That's
Thank you
true.
very much for having me. You guys were pretty damn cool about all this. And yeah, it was lovely to be here.
Yeah. Don't screw us. Me and
Wow,
Co
man.
are playing Friday. Don't do a minion starter and I don't know, something else. I'll let you know. Just don't screw us over. That's all we're asking. Okay.
You'll let me know which one not to screw over on.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. We'll send you some messages afterwards. So, anyways, we're gonna take a break. We'll get math. I was about to call you MathiS again. I don't know where that all started. By the way, we've never talked about this. I think you rated me early on in 3.0, and I was like, "Who the fuck is MathiS?" And then we just stuck
Yeah, I
with
think
it.
that's what happened.
Yeah. I
I
don't
mean,
know.
it works.
It does.
It's what could have been.
It
If
could
I didn't
have
have
been.
an L,
Yeah, you
had
could
an
have been
S,
MathiS.
and it wouldn't have been any weirder.
Yeah. Have a good league launch. We're gonna let MathiS go to sleep because he's been up for quite some time, and then he'll get started with all the 3.6 stuff. So go check all that out. For us, though, we're gonna take a quick break. We'll come back and talk about everything else that's been going on our channels and on Twitch. So we'll see you guys in just about 5 minutes or so. See you then. Be right back.